friends, welcome back to another virtual Cafe Kate's Read Aloud. It is Friday, and I don't know about you, but Fridays are really good days for read alouds. So I am bringing you not one, but two chapters of Wayside School is Falling Down. I am super excited to get through this book so that we can start on the grim conclusion. So without further ado, here we go. Chapter 14, Calvin's Big Decision. It was Calvin's birthday. His mother had made chocolate cupcakes with jelly beans on top. Mrs. Jules passed them out to the class. "Hey, Dana," said Leslie, "I'll trade you my black jelly bean for your red one." "Okay," said Dana. Everyone traded jelly beans. That was the most fun part of the party. Bibi was very excited. "Tell everybody what you're getting for your birthday, Calvin," she said. "I don't know," Calvin mumbled as he stared at his yellow jelly bean. "He's getting the best present," said Bibi. "What are you getting, Calvin?" asked Mrs. Jules. Calvin frowned. "I don't know," he griped. I know what it is, but I don't know what it is." "Huh?" asked Jason. "See, I usually get toys," Calvin tried to explain, "but they always break or get lost or something happens to them. But this year I'm getting something I'll never lose. I'll have it for the rest of my life." "What is it?" asked Terrence. "A tattoo," said Calvin. "Ooh, how neat!" exclaimed Mauricia. Everyone thought it was a great present. "You're so lucky, Calvin," said Rondi. "I wish I could get a tattoo too. Instead, I got a tutu." "I got a tutu too," said Dana. "My parents won't let me get a tattoo," complained John. "My parents wouldn't let me get one either," said Calvin. "Then for my birthday, they said I could get one. But now I can't decide what to get. My dad's taking me to the tattoo parlor after school. I just can't make up my mind." "Get a snake," said Stephen. "No, get an eagle," said Dee Dee. "They're the best." "A dead rat," suggested Kathy. "I just don't know," said Calvin. "I've never had to make such a tough decision. Nothing else I do matters very much. It's not like choosing jelly beans. If you pick the wrong color jelly bean, big deal. You can always spit it out. But once you get a tattoo, you can't change your mind. You can't erase tattoos. Whatever I get, I'll have for the rest of my life." "Well, you could get a lady," said Jason. Calvin shook his head. "I just don't know. I just don't know." "Where are you going to put your tattoo?" asked Allison. Calvin threw up his hands. "I don't know." "You should put it on your arm," said Myron. "That's the best place for tattoos." "You're crazy, Myron," said Todd. "Put it on your chest, Calvin." "I know where you should put it," said Dana, "but I can't say." She giggled like a maniac. Then she whispered it in Jenny's ear. Jenny giggled too. All day, everyone had lots of suggestions for Calvin. They told him what kind of tattoo he should get and where he should put it. A rainbow on his forehead, a flower on his cheek, an anchor on his arm. It was easy for the others to make suggestions. They wouldn't have to live with it for the rest of their lives. "I just don't know," Calvin repeated over and over again. Bibi drew a lot of pictures of him in case he wanted to choose one of those. She drew lions, tigers, buffaloes, and butterflies. "If you like one, I can draw it on your skin for you," said Bibi. "Then the tattoo man can trace over it." "I just don't know," muttered Calvin. "I just don't know." After school, Calvin's father picked him up and drove him to the tattoo parlor. The next day when he walked into class, everybody stared at him. They couldn't see a tattoo. "Did you get one?" asked Mauricia. Calvin smiled. "Yep," he said. "Where is it?" asked Jason. "I know where," Dana explained. She and Jenny giggled. "Well, what'd you get?" asked Todd. "It was a real tough decision," said Calvin. "I almost got a leopard fighting a snake, but then my dad told me to think about it. He said it was sort of like getting a second nose. You may think you want another nose because that way, if one nose gets stuffed up, you can breathe through the other nose. But then he asked me, 'Calvin, do you really want two noses?'" "Your father is very wise," said Mrs. Jules. Calvin nodded. "That made me think," he said. "I decided I didn't want a snake and a leopard fighting on my body for the rest of my life. I suddenly knew exactly what I wanted." He pulled up his left pants leg. There was a small tattoo just above his ankle. Everyone crowded to look at it. "A potato!" exclaimed Leslie. "How stupid!" "That is the worst tattoo in the world," said Mac. They all thought it was a dumb tattoo. Anything is better than a potato, said Jason. It's a pretty potato, said BB, trying to be nice. I wish I could draw potatoes that good. But even BB thought it was a dumb tattoo. I like potatoes, said Calvin. I would hope so, said Mrs. Jules. Calvin could tell Mrs. Jules didn't like his tattoo either. I would have gotten an eagle, said Dee Dee, soaring across the sky. Not me, said Terrence. I would have gotten a lion. I would have gotten a kangaroo, said Leslie. All day, everyone told Calvin what they would have gotten: a fire-breathing dragon, a lightning bolt, a creature from outer space. None of them said that they would have gotten a potato. But Calvin knew better. He knew it was easy for his friends to say what they would have gotten because they really hadn't had to choose. He was the only one who really knew what it was like to pick a tattoo. Even Mrs. Jules didn't know that. He looked at his potato. He smiled. It made him happy. He was sure he had made the right choice. At least he was pretty sure. Chapter 15 is called She's Back. Dee Dee ran across the playground screaming. At first, Louis thought she was just having fun, but then he realized something was wrong. He hurried after her and grabbed her arm. Dee Dee, are you all right? He asked. She stared at him wide-eyed as she continued to scream. Several other kids gathered around. What's wrong, Dee Dee? Asked Myron. I don't know, said Louis. Dee Dee hiccuped 3 times, then gasped, I saw her. Who? Asked Louis. Dee Dee didn't answer. She just stared right through him. But everyone else knew whom Dee Dee had seen. Most of them had seen her too, during the last 2 weeks. Where was she? Asked Todd. On the monkey bars, said Dee Dee, still trembling and breathing hard. I was hanging upside down, and suddenly she was hanging upside down right next to me. Did she wiggle her ears? Asked Jenny. Only one, said Dee Dee. I jumped off and ran away before she could wiggle the other one. That's good, said Rondi. Who is she? Asked Louis. A hippopotamus? No, said Myron with a laugh. Why do you say that? Because when a hippopotamus gets mad, it wiggles its ears. She's worse than a hippopotamus, said Allison. I saw her last week at the water fountain, said Todd. I bent down to get a drink, and then there she was, drinking at the faucet next to me. I saw her on the stairs, said Rondi. I was going up the stairs, and she went right past me, sliding down on the banister. Who? Asked Louis. If you read the first book, I'm sure you have a prediction about who this could be. Mrs. Gorf, said Dee Dee. Just saying the name sent a shiver of fear through her body. Oh, your old teacher, said Louis with a shrug. Is she back? I always wondered what happened to her. The children looked at each other. Mrs. Gorf was the teacher they had had before Mrs. Jules took over. They had never told anyone how they had gotten rid of her. They especially couldn't tell Louis. She was the meanest teacher in the history of Wayside School. Of course, there are other teachers at other schools who are meaner. Louis looked toward the monkey bars. I don't see her, he said. Well, she was there, Dee Dee insisted. I saw her. You just imagined you saw her, Dee Dee, said Louis. If you hate somebody or if you love somebody, you often think you see that person when she isn't there. It's very common. It's just like Mrs. Drazel. Who's Mrs. Drazel? Asked Todd. She was the worst teacher I ever had, said Louis. He shivered just thinking about her. She was my teacher when I was your age. I sometimes think I see her too, and I still have nightmares about her. Was she mean? Asked Rondi. She was horrible, said Louis. Every morning she used to check our fingernails. If they were dirty, she'd tell the whole class, Louis has dirty fingernails this morning, she'd say in a really nasty voice. And if you talked in class, she would pick up the waste paper basket and put it over your head. You had to leave it on your head until the bell rang. Did she ever put it over your head? Asked Todd. Lots of times, said Louis. Everybody laughed. It wasn't funny, said Louis. My mother always knew when I got in trouble because I'd have bits of trash stuck in my hair. Did it get stuck in your mustache too? Asked Rondi. Louis didn't have a mustache when he was our age, said Allison. Did you, Louis? She asked. Suddenly Louis screamed. Everyone stared at him. She's back, he shouted as he shook with fear. Then he slapped himself in the face. Excuse me, he said. Sorry, for a second I thought I saw Mrs. Drazel. He turned to Dee Dee. Come on, let's go to the monkey bars. No, declared Dee Dee. I'm not going back. I'm never getting on the monkey bars again. Louis took hold of her hand. Mrs. Gorf isn't there, he said. You just imagined her. They headed to the monkey bars. No one else dared to follow. If she starts to wiggle her ears, run away as fast as you can, warned Dee Dee. She held tightly onto Louis's hand. When they reached the monkey bars, no one was there. Where were you when you saw her? Louis asked. I was hanging upside down over there, said Dee Dee, pointing. Okay, go hang upside down. No, exclaimed Dee Dee. Don't worry, I'll be right here in case anything happens. It had rained during the night, so the sand under the monkey bars was wet and somewhat hard. Dee Dee walked across the sand and pulled herself up on the bar. She hooked her legs over, then hung from her knees. Well, do you see her? Louis asked. And the book is now upside down. No, it's safe now, said Dee Dee. Thanks, Louis. I guess you're right. I must have seen my shadow or something. Dee Dee pulled herself right side up, then hopped down from the monkey bars. She and Louis walked away hand in hand. She held Louis's hand not because she was scared, but because she liked him. Mrs. Drazel sounds almost as bad as Mrs. Gorf, said Dee Dee. She was, said Louis. She once made me put gum on my nose because I was chewing it in class. How can you chew your nose? Asked Dee Dee. Behind them, Dee Dee's footprints could be seen in the wet sand under the monkey bars. There was also another set of footprints made by a person who had much bigger feet. And that is the end of our Friday read aloud. Our next chapter is called Love and a Dead Rat. All right, friends, I thank you so much for tuning in and reading with me. Until next time, stay safe. Bye.